An intruder on the base. Let's take care of business. I need a drink, but the dear the all right, folks, welcome back. Let's talk about some toys today, as you saw from the stop motion. Our special guest is going to be Spirit Ironknife. You saw him in the classified form with Freedom. And let's talk about actually the first Ara figure I have, the first real American hero Joe figure I bought is actually Spirit. And I actually bought him just after Thanksgiving of 2024. Yeah, I might have mentioned before I was not a big G.I. Joe kid growing up. I didn't have any Joes. Watched the show, knew about G.I. Joe, but yeah, never got into collecting the Joes. I was a Star Wars kid, and I had plenty of the Kenner Star Wars toys. That was my jam. Whether I liked it or not, everybody kept buying me the stuff, so I didn't really have much of a say. But loved the Star Wars stuff. Was always a little envious of the Joes because of look at all this articulation they had. Kenner only let you move legs and arms up and down. He didn't have the O-ring and all the joints that the Joes did, and all the accessories too. That was a cool thing. So yeah, I picked up Spirit. Was in Portland, Oregon, for the holiday, and decided to hit up some toy stores. Because up where I live, there's no such thing as a vintage toy store up here. Kind of on an island up here in Alaska. So did the rounds to a whole bunch of toy stores in Portland. I came close to pulling the trigger on a really nice G1 Thundercracker, but it was a little expensive. It was a little pricey, but it had all the accessories. Plus, I Thundercracker was my least favorite of the Seekers, because everybody loves Starscream, right? Everybody appreciates Starscream. You don't have to like him because he's not a very likable fellow. But anyway, Skywarp. I liked Skywarp because of his color scheme. Black and purple really does it for me. So Thundercracker always fell behind, even though lore-wise, he seemed to like humans. He seemed to be a likable fellow for being a Decepticon. But here we are in a G.I. Joe video talking about Transformers. That's where we are. Let's see. I got a base with this Spirit, but then I wasn't really paying attention. I snapped off the peg here, so that's not it. Spirit, the back of his claws there, those were broken, so not quite like 100% complete figure, unfortunately. But that was cool because I liked Spirit when I did watch the Joe cartoon. Spirit was pretty cool. He went toe to toe with Storm Shadow a few times, so Spirit knew how to handle himself, and he was a shaman, I guess, as well as just being a general ass kicker. Um, but yeah, earlier in 2024, I found myself a Joe collector, um, and picked up a lot of stuff, including Spirit was one of my first buys. Classified Joes are really cool. If you haven't really checked these guys out, um, they're big. There's a lot of articulation on these guys, a lot of detail, a lot of accessories, a lot of dollars. Unfortunately, they're expensive. They're really expensive. for what you get, at least in my opinion. About $25 a piece for a GI Joe sounds a little ridiculous. So, um, and I believe I might. I usually don't buy a Joe unless I find it on sale and clearance and whatnot. So, yeah, there we are. Because I just collecting's one thing, but then sometimes you have to think about it semi-rationally. And the one thing that I really appreciate about the the GI Joe classifieds, and I guess even if you want to go with the old school O-rings, is how you can customize these figures. One thing I really wanted to get into with Transformers was customizing Transformers, but it's very difficult to actually do that. You just can't you just can't take one Transformer and pull some pieces off and stick them together and get something because they're very purpose built because of their nature of the transforming. The Joes, on the other hand, they're people. People are people, and you can swap out all kinds of stuff. Um, Aside from just the accessories, because you can get all kinds of guns and knives and swords and backpacks and holsters, and there's just a lot of stuff. So that's one thing I really appreciate about that is the level of customization you can get into, which is quite a rabbit hole. And I've done some custom figs. Here's one. I guess you can see this was a Cobra Island, was it? Figure um, that I took a vest off. Probably another Cobra something or other. Just swapped vests. You can see the belt buckle. That's a Cobra Island officer, maybe, or son. And then just painted him blue because he was a pilot of something I had. So this was a lot of painting, not so much part swapping. Um, but then you get something like this fellow here on the Tiger Force ATV, room, room, which I did paint, as you can see, that really gaudy orange and whatnot. Um, Painted over, gave it more of a kind of winter theme. Swapped out the tires. You got RC tires out there that you can use for a lot of the classified stuff. So just gave that a paint job. Pretty basic, nothing fancy. Um, but then, yeah, you can do a lot of cool things with the Joes, sw- swapping stuff out. There's other toy lines you can use to kit bash as well. But here's just a kind of nameless, faceless Joe. This is a head, a kind of a translucent head I got from Etsy. Pretty sure I got this from a guy on Etsy. Quite an aftermarket for accessories out there with 3D printing being a thing. Um, there's just so much stuff out there. So there's a vest here. Um, I believe this might have been a Televiper. One of those orange, the Televipers from those really gruesome looking black, red, and yellow trouble bubbles. And then I loaded him up with shoulder pads. He's got the vest here. Oh, look at that. That should get all kind of warped. Uh, this little bit off the back. Is that not barbecue? Yeah, that was barbecue maybe. Kind of ripped off a backpack there. These are barbecue's legs. Um, and yeah, so you could do all kinds of stuff with the Joes, making your own figures, which is something that I really appreciate. I like kind of flexing my creative muscle. so to speak, with that. Um, but yeah, adding another layer of cost to an already costly hobby. Um, Here's a little kit bash. This is a Valverse figure. I needed more Arctic stuff. Picked up Valverse. Make some really cool figs, but then there's this nice, fluffy, warm ruffle around his neck and this battle skirt from a Star Wars figure. Uh, One of those guys in Solo, I guess. Took all that apart and slapped him on here, made him look a little more custom, I reckon. I don't have a lot of stories about GI Joe. Um, Again, wasn't big on that as a kid. Not too many memories of Joe, except that articulation envy, having a ton of Star Wars stuff. Just very limited motion, and the Joes with all the cool accessories and the vehicles they had. Really cool stuff. Kind of wish I was into that because have you seen the price of OG Joes? If you have all the accessories and stuff, man, those things are expensive. Outrageous. Um, that's pretty much it for today. Maybe I should have made that stop motion a little longer someday. Speaking of customization and a sneak peek for an upcoming video, here's a little bit of customization that I did a while ago. A little bit of nightmare fuel. And of course, Transformers themed. If you know what you see, you know what I'm talking about here. One of the most thought-provoking images from a early 90s comic book you could get was Ratchet and Megatron fused together. Don't remember how it happened. They were caught in an explosion. I don't know why they were caught in an explosion. Again, this is from the fever dream that was the late Marvel run of Transformers. Yeah. Look at that guy. Don't look too close because you can see it's, but we're not focused. So maybe you can't see it too well. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about all kinds of stuff. I'll think of something clever to say about G.I. Joe. Um, Speaking about G.I. Joes, okay, so I discovered a couple places, Transformers and G.I. Joe related. Stores like Ollie's and Ross. I never knew what those were until you visit Reddit and you see people posting all the deals they get, which is kind of aggravating because ain't nothing like that where I live. So if you guys can pick up stuff on the cheap, do it. Have some fun. Make some figures if you're so inclined. I'd insert a pithy saying about growing old and whatnot, but other people do that. So, with that, I will get to work on more content because this is fun to just sit down and talk and think about all these wonderful toys. Talk to you later, folks.